Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Naked Steve, and on the other end is just arms naked Pascal Floor.
As always, even though that he doesn't really have the arms to show for.
You have some incredible tattoos which also help.
That's true. Unfortunately, though, and this is something that shout out to Chris, one of my athletes. He's always calling me Dr. Deltoid. And the thing is, he's not right with it and every single time he brings it up when he's doing a check-in and says like, hey, Dr. Deltoid, I'm actually pinching my fat right around here because I'm carrying a lot of fat just in the transitionary period from the delts, side delts over to the triceps and just like the biceps triceps area, which is very unfortunate because as you can see when I'm pinching it, it's just fat. It's not really just like loose skin, which I have like elsewhere. It's just thick layer of fat. And that just makes your arms appear flat. and it's
and the delts, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really popping out because of that. And that is my stubborn fat area. Like very, very stubborn fat area. Even when I was my very leanest, this is still kind of there.
That's mad. Because, I mean, it's completely true because a physique can completely... Like, I've seen some transformations where people have been, like, peak off-season and then they go, like, shredded for stage. And you're like, holy crap, I didn't know you had, like, that great a quad sweep or that great, like, delts.
Chest is a very, very common one, right? When they are carrying a lot of fat around the chest area, it looks like as if you don't really have a chest at all. And then all of a sudden you're getting leaner and leaner and then it starts to pop out and really gets a very different shape overall.
And so for some people it can really work in their favor, but I've also unfortunately seen it where it works the opposite, where you're like, dude, I thought you were much more muscular than this, but
that's true.
Oh, where's it all going? All the size is just shrinking away.
That's true.
I feel like that was me the first time I competed.
But that is also, I think it's so interesting because sometimes when people are maybe stepping on the stage for the first time, they want to hear somewhat of an estimate of what their stage weight will be. Some people, they lose the first 10 pounds and all of a sudden you're already like, holy shit, we are not that far away anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have people who are losing like 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and you think like, okay, we are first starting the prep now.
Yeah. It's a tricky one because I have like an idea of like what a certain amount of like weight over stage looks like 10% over, what 15% over looks like. But sometimes it just, it knocks you for like 6. You're like, okay. Better to be in the position of the former where you're like losing and you're like, oh, you have less to lose than the latter where you're like, you actually have almost like 10, like, I don't know, 1.5 times the amount I thought you had to lose. But
so if you could choose, right, Steve, you have a very, very favorable body fat distribution, in my opinion. Your upper body looks always kind of diced. The lines in your chest come through very, very quickly. Always have some abs. Always have some incredible arms. So I would very much like to change with you. So when you can choose, would you rather have always a chiseled upper body or lower body?
I mean, I think it makes sense to have a more chiseled upper body just because, I mean... Who's looking at your legs? A lot of the time they're covered up and
just yourself basically when you flex in the mirror in the gym.
Really weirdly, from a bodybuilding perspective, I fucking love dialed in legs. And I love seeing like huge legs that are still lean in like off season. But from like a lifestyle perspective and everything like that, it probably makes more sense to have the upper body being a bit leaner.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed on the search button, right? And then you see all those crazy people, and especially like females. And I'm just looking at their legs, for example, and I'm like, man, I want those legs. Just in general, some of the enhanced females, I'm just like married big time. And I already talked about it in the past. And if you then follow someone like Shelby Stance, it doesn't make things any better because he has some crazy athletes in his roster. Like crazy athletes.
Because of their like proportions in terms of like tiny waist, like some of them, the figure girls he has, they're just, I think they're figure or maybe they're bodybuilding, but they just look incredible. You're just like, and some of them are so young as well, I swear. I'm just like, wow, that is the shape I really could do with.
Even the arms, I'm like, please give me those arms. they just look incredible. Oh man, that's sad sometimes.
Yeah, but we are not, actually that's the reel I actually posted yesterday went down very well, which was good to see.
The natural bodybuilding reel?
Yeah, where I'm like, when we're flexing like without clothes, we look pretty decent. But then when we're covered up, we look like a normal person on the street. And that is, unfortunately, the category we land ourselves in.
Unfortunately, yeah. Sometimes I feel like an imposter when it comes to that, to be honest. Because you present yourself as a bodybuilder, you present yourself as someone who knows something about lifting. But if anyone would, or most of the people in the gym would not approach you. Maybe you now, because of course you are getting more diced and shredded, and you're getting to a very impressive point when it comes to the muscularity. But to me, no one is actually coming up to me and thinking like he knows what he's talking about. Also another thing that is unfortunate, but that is just the life of a natty, unfortunately. An ungifted natty, let's put it that way.
This is like the thing when I tell people, or maybe I'm with Charlotte and her friends and she's like, I don't know, what do you do? Oh, like they find out I'm a bodybuilder. And I think they're like incredibly disappointed when they look at me and they're like, you're just starting out, right? Like wow. you're putting on weight for your show, right? You're looking to get bigger. And I'm just like, no. I need to lose a lot of weight. And they're just like, you just see their face kind of like, this doesn't make sense to me.
No. That is not bodybuilding.
Yeah. So, well, it's the life we lead. And yeah, like I said, it can be a party trick. You just like, you're at a party, someone's like, what's your party trick? You just strip down. You just like flex. This is it.
I don't think that the trick works on me though.
Maybe
if I turn up on a party, I take off my shirt, everyone will just be like, what the fuck is this fat guy doing?
Only in comp prep, I guess, like deep into it, to be honest. That would only work.
Speaking of which, how are things going on your end?
Yeah, pretty. I mean, like we spent a lot of the last podcast kind of going over, I guess, a bit of just the journey in a sense. But no, things are going really smooth. Feeling good. Appetite is really under control. Like I said last time, I think I made a few switches to my diet, which just made hunger management better. And so, yeah, I haven't had any problems yet. I think, though, 180 pounds around this body fat is like my lower end settling point where I feel I could maintain this, no doubt. Like this would be comfortable to maintain considering like, I mean, I take the weighted vest off, reduce my steps a bit. I'd still be on a decent amount of food at this point. And I feel like things are still functioning fine, still sleeping well. But as I dig below this, which will happen in the next few weeks, that's when things I'm expecting, I don't want to have it in my head because it's quite nice to have like the ignorance to it all and just go through and just see what happens. But I expect as I get below 180 pounds, that's when things will get a bit trickier for me. I'll start having lower energy levels. Training will start stagnating. So yeah, but at the moment, really happy.
Cool.
But
and that is 10 weeks out and 18 weeks out.
When this comes out, I'll be 9 and 17.
All right.
But I do want to, well, hopefully I qualify for the UK DFBA finals, which is in between those two shows. So there'll be another one in there. And I mean, I'd like to do 4 shows. I hope the BNBF publish their dates for their later shows. They've got one in like 4 weeks. But apparently like they just have been quite quiet on social media. Like I haven't really seen them talking about shows and stuff. But I'd like to do, I mean, as many shows as I can that's realistic because why not?
Man, I'm freaking scared about everything that is currently once again going on. I'm scared in the sense that you aren't allowed to travel and stuff like that because right now my mom-in-law is still in discussion with everything here in Germany when it comes to health around my second vaccination because of what has happened to me, and they can't really outrule whether there was a correlation with the vaccine, and that's why I will not get the second shot of the biotech vaccine. And there's no one actually feeling responsible to actually take care of the matter. So I'm still stuck with not having received my second vaccination, which then could lead to then, I don't know, maybe some restrictions or limitations when it comes to traveling in the fall time, when I planned on traveling to, I don't know, Dubai, the UK and all that kind of stuff. And I really do hope that things will stay somewhat open so that the shows will go down, because I think that many people this time around, due to the vaccination and all the developments over the past couple of weeks and months, they prepare for those shows. It's not like last year where the majority of people just like stopped already earlier because they thought everything is too uncertain. And it would be devastating to have another year where it's like that, to be honest. And
I can't see, I mean, you can't predict the future, but I would like to think, and I'll touch wood to say that this is happening. But I mean, there were some shows last year that went ahead. I can't imagine these ones being like just cancelled or anything. And I think for you with travel, I'm hoping they do this at least, where either you can show them you've had a double vaccination or whatever, or you do a test and you come through, like you were having to do in the gym, that sort of setup. That makes sense to me.
Thing is, though, I know that there have been people stuck in different countries because they needed to, I don't know, show some kind of test. And of course, they were already at the airport or the day prior of leaving, and then they needed to reorganize things. And the thing is, that is something that I can't do. Not due to kind of organization or logistical reasons, but because I can't be away from my family for that long. Like, honestly, it's like a drug. The longer I'm away from that, from my family, the more I crave to go back to them. And I can't, I simply, I know it is selfish, but I couldn't wholeheartedly want to travel, go to a different country if I'm running risk of not being able to make it back in a very short amount of time, and I actually need to be away from them due to quarantining myself or so. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, hopefully things will just continue to get, it feels like we're on a upwards trajectory. Is that, trajectory? It feels like things are improving, so hopefully it won't even come down to that. It won't be a question. It's just
Wait a second. On that note, does it feel like that in the UK?
I mean, we were meant to be completely free. I think it was like the end of June was when we're meant to be completely free, where they're just like, no more masks. Yeah. You can do whatever you like. You can go to concerts, whatever. But they extended that. So
sure,
I guess some people might feel like it's not. But for me, I feel like the vaccinations are going up. Lots of people are getting their double vaccination now.
But I mean, when you just like check the entire sentiment that is going on, like in public, when you were outside and also in the media, does it sound like positive in the UK? Because of course, I could imagine that it's always country dependent what the narrative then is. Because in Germany, it sounds a little bit like grim and a little bit like in the fall we probably are running risk of a fourth wave. We probably need to already get the third shot of a vaccine to not run risk of things. Also, in regards to now the European Cup and all that kind of stuff, are we now already setting ourselves up for then repeating what has happened like last year? So the entire sentiment is a little bit like fear-mongering, and I don't know if it's justified or not. I'm not an expert, so I can't really talk to that, but the overall sentiment sounds like, all right, this is also just a temporary amount of freedom that we are now enjoying, and then once the fall comes, such as last year, it's back to another long lockdown because the vaccine doesn't really work against the Delta variation and all that kind of. This is at least for me the sentiment right now in Germany. I don't know how it is then in the UK, and maybe that is why I'm having that kind of sensation and anxiety when it comes to planning things, also then for the shows and all that kind of stuff.
I think this might be where the difference is. Our news very may well be the same. I just don't follow it closely.
Just following Love Island.
No, I mean, I gave up on. I made a decision to not follow it as closely.
Yeah.
for the COVID news, because I was just like, it's not helping me now. I'm just I like, to a point I was fed up, and I was like, I know what I can and can't do now. I'm just going to live my life and not keep checking if things are getting worse or getting better. So in my world, for me, in my perspective, things feel pretty good. I saw my family recently. The gyms are open.
Ignorance can be bliss in that regard.
It could be. Just for me, it was. I remember people like, there was a few people I followed who are like, it's been nice not watching the news all the time. I was like, you know what? It's causing me a bit of anxiety, a bit of stress. In prep, I really don't need that right now. So I was just like, I'm just going to focus less on that and just actually what's happening in my life right now. So
it also makes sense. It makes sense because after all, the news media is not just there to, of course, tell you like the unimportant things or things that are just like normally going on, but it is sometimes even controversial, or is trying to create some emotions in you.
The only thing I did see, why have I forgotten his name? Someone in cabinet had an affair and broke all the law.
Matt Hancock.
Yeah, that's the one. Hancock. Fucking Hancock. Oh god.
I've seen like. Did you see that? It Was Me. The Shaggy song.
It was great.
That was so well made. So well
that guy
made.
Is hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm not. It's not even my country, right? And I still know who that is and what happened and all that kind of stuff. So
the
amazing.
Guy's a joke. Can't believe him. Just ridiculous. Breaking like every single like little lockdown rule that he was trying to instigate. It's just like, my mind was a bit blown with that. So, and then other news is, England beat Germany.
That's true.
I just had to bring it up. I think it was like after 55 years, I think I saw since we'd beaten you.
I didn't watch it live though. I just know that the day before that, Switzerland was actually then playing against, who was it again? France. And they threw them out, right? And I thought on that day when they were playing that Germany is already playing, because our neighbors, they were shouting so loudly, and it was freaking annoying. It was way too loud, right? And I'm old already, and that's why I'm getting so upset about it, as you can tell. But I thought that it's Germany that is playing already, and then I figured out it was the Switzerland, and then I realized, shit, Germany is playing tomorrow. How will that then turn out to be? And luckily, they lost, so there was no chanting, there was no like super loud celebration and all that kind of stuff. So there's a silver lining to it.
But we'll see what happens this Saturday.
Is football the real question of the podcast then, Steve, is football coming home?
I'm really this is what I said to you, like, I'm not super patriotic. Like, I'm English, but like English people aren't that patriotic anyway. If we do well, people are like, oh yeah, look at what they did. But if they do bad, it's like, I'm not really English anyway. So it's just like, I'm not one of the football players on the pitch. I'm not related to any of them. I have no influence on how England are going to do. So I'm like, I got no real like money in this game. So yeah, if they do well, they do well. But the thing I enjoy is like Charlotte gets really into it. So I find it really fun just to like sit down and watch it. And like I said to you, having played football at a reasonable level when I was younger, at least it's something I can understand watching it. Whereas there's some sports I watch and I'm just kind of like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
So
funny because I just saw kind of a sentence from one of the players out of the German team who said something along the lines of like, it's nice for change that we don't have all the vaccine experts any longer or the virologists, but we now finally have 80 million national team coaches again, or football coaches in the country. So, and that is kind of true, right?
Yeah,
all of a sudden, people are turning from being virologists or vaccine experts into football coaches.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
Yeah, it's scary. Anytime I dig into those, like the COVID thing, you just realize how out of your depth you are, and you just need to rely upon the experts in that sense. But I wanted to touch on, you've just had a deload. And did you combine this time your deload with a diet break? It sounded like maybe you did, or had a few days.
But that's what I typically do. And so often I realize that it's not working that well for me. I mean, I'm not overeating or anything I like, but I'm having a harder time than getting back into a diet. But this time, because I was very much flexible and relaxed about the diet in and for itself anyway. And also I told you about my ride. I was feeling a little bit dry.
Yeah.
Possibly then due to the weather maybe, and also then due to being just exhausted from the training. I thought like, okay, I should probably also increase my calories just to give the body a little bit of a physiological break alongside with that as well. Sorry for that. And that's why I increased the calories. And then from tomorrow onwards, it's once again going back into the caloric deficit. And then very much focused, though, for the next 4 weeks up until the point where I'm then going on holiday. And then I really treat it like as a serious cut where I'm then really going down. And I know that in 4 weeks, I can accomplish quite a lot. I know that from previous experiences. And when I'm then aiming for somewhere around 1% of body weight loss per week, I should then end the cutting phase at around 77 kilograms or so, which would be quite cool because the last time I ended the contest prep at around 76 kilograms or so. And if I made it to 77 kilograms without any kind of stress at all, with a flexible approach, of course, over a longer time span though, but very, very uninvasive or no, what's the right word? Not really invasive, let's put it that way. I think it's a positive thing.
It's definitely a lesson, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, you just recorded the podcast episode with Scott Stevenson, and he brought up one thing in the podcast saying like he's going through several different peak week methodologies just to test it out for his clients. So when he was able to manipulate certain variables, chances are that this also then applies to his athletes as well. And you can take a look at it from this perspective with my cutting phase. I've never done it that way, but that's why it's probably good, because then I can first and foremost understand what it feels like, how it works, and also whom it may be most appropriate for and who maybe not so much, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that's the beauty. I mean, I really appreciate researchers who also lift because that really complements their research, I find. So a lot of the podcast guests, but also coaches. I don't think I'd be, I would be I think I'd be an awful coach if I didn't lift. I think I'd just rely on science maybe, and that's it, or textbooks, and that's it. Whereas I love the fact that we can experiment on ourselves. And like this contest prep for me is a big just learning process the whole way. What can I pick up this time round? And same with peaking as well. I may pick up some things from kind of trialing different peaking methods and stuff like that. So yeah, I appreciate that podcast with Scott. I think people are gonna enjoy it, but there's a lot in there.
I very much enjoyed it, but I honestly love Scott. He's such a genuine guy, and every single time he talks, he's one of those, I don't know whether it is due to the experience or so, but all of the people who have been into bodybuilding since decades already seem like super, super kind people, such as Ronnie Coleman, for example, right? You just want to hug Ronnie Coleman. He seems such a nice dude. The same goes then for Scott. He's just, I don't know, he seems like such a good guy. You just want to hang out with him. And the podcast episodes are long, absolutely. But I very, very much appreciate his insights and his wisdom.
Yeah, he's not a chore to talk to. He's very good for podcasts. And yeah, like you said, he doesn't really feel like he has any agenda. He is true to just the science and to experience and trying to get the best. And it doesn't have he is not dogmatic. I don't feel like he hasn't got like a certain thing that's his. He updates what he's doing. So yeah, he's just very nice to listen to.
Yeah, and it feels like, and that is maybe also the true spirit of a scientist, that he's very, very curious about what other people have to say and what they've experienced. So when you brought up the thing about your redeemer, he was like, oh, yeah, really? Oh, all right, interesting, right? And I think that this, if you're that open-minded, it always, I think, makes it possible for you to go down new avenues and discover new things for yourself, which then you don't have to then apply for yourself, but maybe it's a good addition to certain things or good insight overall to make some further modifications and adjustments.
Yeah, I think there's a few people, I've mentioned the edema to a few guests, and some of them have been very much like Scott. Like he was like that, and Lee Peel was like that, where she was very much like, I think they're just both very similar in terms of they're problem solvers. They're just like, they hear it and it sounds like a problem. They're like, there's science in that. I want to solve that problem for you. So yeah, that should be a good listen for people. What was I going to say? So what I wanted to ask, because you said you're kind of looking to lose that 1% per week, kind of kicking it up a gear. What changes are you making to achieve that?
Just a little bit more strict with the diet. Not that I'm saying that I'm not strict right now, but I would probably not have a bowl of cereals then, to be very frank. Something like that, where I'm still allowing myself something like that, where in reality I don't need to. It's more like filling up the total amount of calories, because before that I didn't want to be in such a severe deficit, because I knew, all right, when I'm at around 2,000 calories, that should be more than enough for seeing a good rate of weight loss, which is not too severe though. And at the same time, I could still fit in like 100 grams of cereals, and I didn't really feel hungry by the end of the day. Still got got 3 good meals in throughout the day, and then the 4th meal is kind of a bowl of cereals, something like that. I will just throw out and exchange with maybe just a fruit or maybe nothing at all, and then you have like, basically, instead of having like 3 proper meals and kind of, there's a fruit fly here, and something, I don't want to call it a sweet, but kind of a sweet meal. Not having that sweet meal, being a little bit more rigid and strict when it comes to that. And also just like tracking way more meticulously, where it's like, okay, this is just what I will have for dinner, for example. And it's not like, today I'm not feeling like that, so I just switch over to something else that is maybe having the same caloric value. I will probably be way more robotic when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think cereal is one of the, when you're in a mass, it's perfect. But when you're cutting, like it's 100 grams is actually a significant amount. So if you can chop that out, you've just given yourself a way bigger deficit. And then you replace it with a couple of pieces of fruit, like you've still got a load of calories that you've now saved there. And volume wise, if you're talking like volumetrics and fiber and everything, you're probably getting even potentially more from the fruit, depending what you pick, like strawberries, a big bowl of strawberries or something. You can just go crazy with that stuff.
Exactly. And then in the evening time, it's probably then just a big salad or so, instead of what I had before. Before that, I had a cucumber salad, which is, at the moment, I don't know why, but I love the cucumber salad that Katie is able to do. Though we are putting a little bit of olive oil over it and all that kind of stuff. And also, it's kind of I don't know if you've ever had that. It's amazing. I had it in the past, and right now I kind of rediscovered it for myself. It's a bowl with cottage cheese, with a can of tuna, and some linseed oil. And the linseed oil in there is very, very important for the taste. It's amazing. It's a very, very big protein feeding, but it tastes amazing, like honestly. And that, of course, made then just move for something like, I don't know, a protein source for the salad or so. Yeah. And then you're saving up 100, 200 calories there on that front, as well, alongside with then dropping this bowl of cereals, changing that for maybe just an apple or so, and you come out with an additional 300 calories less. Yeah. It's quite easy, actually, then to shed some caloric values in a diet, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's nice for the audience just to hear how simple, like it's like a simple swap kind of thing. Are you still doing you were doing like a halo top every day or something?
Oh, that is a long time gone, man.
You're doing an ice cream.
Yeah. No. I started actually not doing that first and foremost because it's quite expensive.
Yeah,
because the Halo Top is not cheap, and if you just sum it up, like one Halo Top a day is like, holy shit! By the end of the month, that is a lot. And at the same time, I don't think that's the right way to eat. To be honest, sure, having something there that is a little bit more processed and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that is necessarily bad, especially when you're someone who's eating a lot of calories. Then I think the more calories you consume on a daily basis, the more beneficial it probably is and the less harmful, I think, even though from the magnitude you're consuming more processed foods. I think that when you are already meeting all of the mineral and vitamin requirements for the day, I think you should be good. However, if you still only move in a decent range of calories, and decent, I would say like somewhere in between 2,000 to 3,000 calories, it's a decent amount. So not borderline low, but also not overly high, where you then, when you're consuming 4,000 calories, you actually have to already incorporate things such as liquid calories to make it happen for you. Then I think it doesn't really have a proper place in there. And that's not to say that the people who do that, I think they are not eating well. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that there's probably better options. And if you make room for these kind of things and cut some of the less processed foods and more wholesome foods in order to make that happen, I think that's not the right approach. And to be honest, that completely changed for me over the past years. And when I take a look at my nutrition now in comparison to what it was a couple of years back, I would say that I'm eating so much more maturely right now, because I put so much more value in these wholesome foods and eating. I know what it sounds like, but eating like an adult. I'm not trying to play macro Tetris in order to squeeze in as much junk food as possible, right? Like this typical, if it fits your macros meme, where it's not, well, what the abused version of if it fits your macros, and not the proper version, I would say. And ever since I did that, I feel so much better in general. Also, from a hunger perspective, my hunger levels are way more regulated and controlled. When I'm dieting, everything is so much easier and smoother. Just from a comparison perspective, it trumps it in every kind of aspect, to be honest. Maybe not in the palatability aspect, but yeah, you get what I mean.
Hey, you find ketchup and chicken sandwiches. That's like your favorite food. No, I was just going to say, this kind of reminds me of a discussion I just recently had with Charlotte, where I was like, man, I love what my diet looks like right now, because everything in there is just, I mean, I might have, 100 calories where I'm like, I'm just going to chuck this to like being a biscuit or something at the end of the day, because I'm like, I'm not really that hungry. I just need to get some calories in, so I'm not in too big a deficit. But the vast majority of my day's diet, I'm just like, everything is just like, I can just, because there's not such a big quantity, I can really focus down on the quality of it. And I can just make sure every meal is exactly how I want it to be. And I love my diet right now. It sounds crazy. But right now, and like you're asking how prep is, I'm so much happier here than I am like deep into an off season. Yeah. Fuck deep into an off season. I'm very happy here. I know it will get harder. But yeah, I love that aspect. And on that point, I probably have calories now. Charlotte was like, I was like, oh, a Domino's would be really good right now. And she was like, oh, you could do one. Like, you could just have half. And I was like, it's just not worth it. No. I could fit it. I could play macro Tetris, but I'll just be more stressed. I'll be more hungry. Yeah. I'll be more arsey. And I don't want it. I prefer to feel happier eating my potatoes and tin of tuna with tomatoes or something that I have.
Maybe you've realized that when I was actually trying to explain it, I had a very, very hard time putting it into words of putting my thoughts into proper wording here. Because this is not being judgmental. This is not saying that one way of eating is better than the other way of eating. I've gone through so much stuff. I'm taking care of my nutrition ever since I was 14 because I was fat. I needed to change my nutrition, right? Of course, quite different to what it is now, and the awareness and knowledge that I have right now is completely different to what it was like back then. But when I'm saying these things, it's just my personal experience that comes into play, and I think that I'm eating the healthiest I've ever eaten in my entire life. And at the same time, it makes things the smoothest and easiest as well. And then it just raises the question of like, I don't know, I don't want to compare it with addiction or so, but there was a time where I had a very, very hard time not eating those highly palatable things, even in a diet, even though that it made things so much harder by the end of the day because you've been dealing with so much more hunger and all that kind of stuff. And kind of, I was always craving something, and that's why I was playing that macro Tetris. And right now, things are so much smoother. I'm hardly ever dealing with significant hunger levels anymore. Even when I'm cutting, things are smooth because I'm making those right, or those decisions that are right for me to make it easier on myself and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, if we are really, really honest with ourselves, we all know that probably something like a proper wholesome meal is probably better than something highly processed. And of course, there's some people will come on and say like, what the fuck? No, in the end, it only matters with the calories and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the only thing that matters. There are so many things that we still don't understand about nutrition, that there may be some things that we simply can't get due to processed foods. And at the same time, processed foods, they cause something in our body that maybe wholesome foods will never do, right? Because it is made for overriding or accelerating some of our evolutionary drivers as well. And ever since I didn't do that anymore, where I'm just trying to squeeze in a lot of palatable stuff, guys, things have completely changed, and it's so much easier to cut, even up to the point where I'm saying like, even in a cutting phase sometimes, I think that I'm stuffed, right? And that is me going to around 1% of body weight loss per week. And then it's only or purely a psychological game.
Yeah, it comes back to the thought that comes to mind is like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. No. It's like, just because you can get away with stuffing your diet with a bunch of like processed foods and palatable foods, and maybe you can still be of good health, like mental health wise. Like I could diet with palatable foods and a fair bit, and I play around with my macros and do macro Tetris, like have like low calorie pizza or whatever, which was quite palatable and tasty and what have you. And but my mental health would struggle. Like I'd be struggling with that mentally because I'd be like, I'm hungrier, I'm thinking about palatable food more. You get that kind of dopamine reward system. So whilst you can do it, it was inherently more stressful. Whereas now, like you're kind of just on cruise control because the diet, it's fine, it's tasty enough, it does the job, but not so tasty that it's driving you kind of crazy. Like you're like, oh, I need this. Like chewing gum, I'm really trying to avoid chewing gum because I know I go crazy with it. So I'm not even having one piece a day at the moment. I'm just like, I'm not having it in the house, not doing it. I'm not diet drinks. Often I can get out of control with diet drinks during deep into prep, and I have like 4 or 5, like possibly on days. And I know like I want another one. It doesn't ever satisfy me though. I just drive for more and more. So I'm like, if I have one, I have like 1 up to maybe 2, and then strict no more because it gets out of hand.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Thing is, people know that in 2017 I was dealing with over a longer period of time with binge eating behavior and episodes. And all the years prior to that, so as I already mentioned, I needed to take care of my nutrition ever since I was 14. The way I did it back then was just to cut out sugar because I didn't know better. right? But I was running risk of becoming a diabetic. So I was told, like, you need to reduce your blood sugar levels. And to me, as a 14-year-old, that sounded like, okay, cut out the sugar. So that's what I did. Then I lost a bunch of weight. This way of eating, I continued for, I can't even recall, like 7 or 8 or 9 years or so, something like that. I think up to 2012 or so. And that was also during the time where I was super skinny, 64 kilograms. And I never had any kind of cravings where I was running risk of binging, even though that I was super skinny. Something like that first occurred in 2017 when I started also to then gorge on palatable things. Now, moving forward to 2021, because I hardly eat that much, or hardly eat any kind of palatable stuff anymore, and the things that I'm eating, I have full control over, and that is not like a lot, something like I already talked about, maybe 100 grams of cereals, maybe every now and then with my kids and ice cream or so, and that's basically it. Ever since then, I have also never run risk of overeating again. Never. And that is something that is, I think, a very, very powerful lesson, not only for me, but also for other people maybe, because I'm dealing with a lot of people who are signing up to the services who are dealing with like overeating and binging. I know that the solution isn't to tell them like cut out all of the palatable things, but a very, very common phenomenon and reason why people are overeating is because of palatable food, highly palatable food. And most of the time, the most palatable stuff is highly processed as well. And I'm not demonizing those things because they are just foods, right? They have been produced, etc., etc. That it doesn't mean that they are bad or so. That's not what I'm saying. But it's our decisions that when we are going for those foods and it just overrides everything in our body and system and puts it into overdrive and be like, oh shit, this is the greatest stuff ever, then it's very hard to resist that temptation, especially when you've dieted down. So one of the things that many people could be doing is actually reduce and maybe even cut out a lot of the palatable stuff. Doesn't have to be forever, but maybe for a temporary amount of time. Which brings me to another point, and then I'll let you speak, Steve. And that is right now, and ever since like 2, 3, 4 years over on Instagram, or not just Instagram, but social media, you hear people saying like, you don't have to be overly restrictive and rigid. You don't need to abandon certain foods in your diet. But that's not what reality looks like. That may be the reality for that individual, because that individual always has been on the lean side of things. But I know for a fact from working with so many people so far already who've been dealing with that kind of stuff, and also myself, that it is better to just avoid certain foods. It doesn't have to be forever, but avoiding them is definitely a better solution than always testing your willpower and always testing yourself, right? It's kind of, it's like an addict, right? Just telling them like, instead of having, I don't know, a whiskey bottle, just have half of it, right? Right? It should be all right. What the fuck are you talking about? He needs to stop it for the time being, if not forever, because that is a trigger for them that then just leads them to overconsume. And I'm definitely not saying here, just also once again to be very, very clear, I'm not comparing like alcoholism or drug abuse with food, because they are different things, but some of those drivers are very, very similar to another.
Yeah, I think they absolutely are very similar. They're just the magnitude's less. Yeah. So it's like a valid point to make. And I think we can all say we've been there. And like you do just get into habits and behaviors and the body just wants it. Like I've been there time and time again. And I think I left this in a voice message to you maybe yesterday, where I was talking about it's such a annoying thing that the body does, where when you're in a mass phase and you can eat plenty of food, you can afford to have lots of this processed food if you would want to, because you're having so much, it doesn't really taste that good.
No.
Whereas I can see why, particularly at the end of like contest prep or diets, particularly contest prep, because people know, oh, I need to put on body fat, I need to have more food, and then they just go ham and they rebound like a motherfucker because the food probably tastes so freaking good, and it's so easy to overeat at that time because you just have like a bottomless pit. Like it's the body is very smart, but that's one of the frustrations I have with it. I'm just like, the perfect time to eat a pizza for it to be most palatable is cutting, but that doesn't fit.
I wish that is something that we've talked about also in regards to training. I wish that especially our small niche of the evidence-based realm is a little bit more bro-ish at times, and in that regard as well, because I think that this may help a lot of people instead of going down that if it fits your macro route, trying to just like squeeze in palatable stuff and that then leads to other issues and causes which are so hard to reverse again, that they are just like eating a little bit more like an adult, like a bro, because when you compare those to another, of course, in a vacuum, you can't really do that. There always needs to be context to it. Some people can definitely manage to just eat if it fits the macros and even abuse it without ever running risk of overeating or so. But the vast majority of people can't. And that's why I think that being a little bit more bro in the gym due to intensity and just like kicking ass, and also in regards to the diet, is something that I would very, very much appreciate many people do. Like, if that is the message that I would like people to get away here at this or in this podcast episode, is be a little bit more bro, please. Please do it for yourself.
I think it's really interesting because I think, fortunately, for people around our age, so around their 30s, I think they came from a background of doing it bro and then going into science. Whereas a lot of people are going straight to science now. And like you said, not that science doesn't miss this out, it's just people might jump the gun, but the bros got a lot of the foundations right. Like they focused on like nutritional quality, like quote unquote clean foods. And sure, it got too extreme, but it got that foundation there. And then same in the gym, they focus on working hard, which is a necessity. And so you kind of get the foundations before you run into like macros and nutrient timing and like RAR and set progression or volume via hard sets. Whereas if you jump the gun past that, you might miss these kind of, you might put the cart before the horse, you might put the horse before the cart, miss the forest before the trees, what have you. So I think we were in a good position. We really benefited from that. But now sometimes people, I think, jump a gun and then maybe we get them as clients. We're like, you're not really pushing quite hard enough, or I looked over your diet in my fitness pal and I'm like, you should like, where is your nutritional quality here? Or they're doing like extreme, intermittent fasting or something, and it's like,
I mean, we can talk about this for such a long time, I think, and many of the things we have talked about in the past already, but I think that it's always worth revisiting those topics. And when you have, and this is something kind of a self-assessment, when you take a look at MyFitnessPal, and each and every single meal that you have contains like 5 to 10 things, it's probably not a good idea. I'd keep it. But keep it freaking simple, right? When I take a look at my meals, and I'm not saying that this is the way to go or so, but it is something like the common typical bros stuff. So just to give you an example of when I'm cutting, for example, a typical lunch for me is a lean piece of meat with broccoli. That is basically it. 2 things, right? And that is suffice. And then coming evening time, it's maybe something that I've already talked about, like cottage cheese, tuna, linseed oil, and maybe then a cucumber salad. Plain and simple. It doesn't need to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things in one kind of meal or dish.
You're a chef.
Unless you're a chef, of course, absolutely. But I think that keeping it way simpler is first and foremost a little bit, it takes your mind off of food because otherwise you're always thinking about food the entire time. You're pre-planning things, and that makes you think of food way too often throughout the day. And also keeping it simple would just probably make your entire life easier, and it's not too overwhelming when it comes to playing with certain flavors and all that kind of stuff. And still, it kind of does its job well. I don't know if you then have a well-balanced diet throughout the day, where I would also recommend having like kind of the same portion size with the kind of same caloric value throughout the day will probably help. And that comes from someone who had something like intermittent fasting background in the past, and I'm still someone who's not overly hungry in the morning, but I think it's still helpful to have like those evenly portion sized meals throughout the day, so that when ghrelin spikes and all that kind of stuff, that I'm not running risk that in the evening time I'm just my hunger ramps up so big time, because I kind of always saved up some calories throughout the rest of the day. And also from the size of the portions, it's like now coming evening time, I've nothing sitting there in my stomach anymore, and that's why I'm now craving so much. And I'm also tired from the day of work and all that kind of stuff, and then you're just very much tested. And I think that having just a very structured and well balanced, as always, right? As always with nutrition and training, kind of the middle ground is probably the best way to go about it. Also there, having a well-balanced diet is probably the way to go. And this is so unsexy, I know this. It's also, at first, probably not the most delicious for you, because your taste buds are still primed for those highly palatable things. But over time, you will start to appreciate those things.
Yeah, I just think about like any goal. If you have a business goal, a life goal, whatever it is, you always have structure, you have a plan, and you execute it. So when you have a physique goal, you have nutritional inputs, and you need to have structure. Otherwise, and I've had people who just like, they freeball it every day. They track as they go through the day. And I'm like, this is the classic like new person to tracking, because you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to be at the end of the day with like really obscure macros, and you're going to have to eat like 50 grams of nut butter just with a spoon or something, just because you missed out on fats all day or something. So I almost with every client like them to like give me an idea of like a meal plan almost of what they are trying to achieve timing wise, food wise. And then, yeah, they can have days maybe on the weekends where they're a bit more free, but that structure is so pivotal to producing results. So yeah, hopefully this has been a useful chat for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we haven't covered I have some questions.
Another time. Last time we didn't cover them as well, right? No.
But we have how many here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll save them. We're covered. We'll do like a big Q&A next time.
Yeah, all right. This is a promise. Next time we're not talking just about ourselves, about diet, about the COVID vaccine situation. We're talking about the questions. So guys, if you have any kind of questions, leave them also in the comment section below, so that we can kind of gather a lot more questions. Also, one more thing that we need to put out is we are launching and starting another mini-cut movement. This time we kind of revisited it so that we are also having Zoom calls there, so that we are guiding people, having a little bit more of a coaching feeling to it. So it is kind of coaching. It's a group coaching environment where we are then meeting up on a weekly basis with Zoom calls. Then we are, of course, talking about things. If people have any kind of questions or so, this is the right place in asking them. So it is kind of coaching, but of course not to the extent of like a one-on-one coaching. Of course, that must be said. And we are now collecting or having opened up the waiting list. So you can go over to revivestronger.com, then on the mini-cut movement, and then you can sign up for the waiting list. Once we are opening up the enrollment, then you can sign up for that. Then you're part of the mini-cut movement, the first one of its kind. And then it will probably be starting somewhere in the midst of August, like completely. And then it will be a ride of a total amount of 8 weeks together, and yeah, hopefully then peeled and shredded manner by the end of it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really cool, because group coaching, the luxury of group, doing it as a group, is you have like-minded people there, and we can also help a lot of people. I know a lot of people want one-on-one coaching with us, but it's not super affordable for a lot of people. So this is going to be mega affordable compared to one-on-one coaching. You still get somewhat that element where we're going to be guiding them. And if they were to have a consultation one-on-one with us, it would be more than what the mini cut's probably going to cost as it is. So you're getting that Zoom contact with us. The group's unlikely to be huge. We may even have a cap. We haven't kind of decided that. So this is going to be like, if people are interested in getting a feel for Revive Stronger and like want an element of that coaching, and also interested in learning about mini cuts and how to most effectively do those, this is going to be, I'm very excited for it, because I think when we launched it before, we didn't have as much contact time with it, whereas this is much more, we're going to be more hands-on than ever. And I think that's just going to make the whole process more fun, and it will drive better results for people too. So definitely get on the waiting list.
Yeah, just meeting up on a weekly basis on the Zoom calls. I mean, if you're really serious about it, you can basically ask as many questions as you want in those Zoom calls. And if you need some guidance, if you need to even have a look over your spreadsheet there, right, because if something is unclear and you don't know what to do, then you can send it over, and then we'll go over things there on the Zoom call as well, so that other people can see it as well. Nothing should be too intimate though, that's for sure, right? But this is like a coaching, just in a group setting. And even for an affordable price for the majority of people. And that is, I think, the most valuable thing of still having like coaches on a weekly basis and getting adjustments, and then going out there and getting the most out of a mini cut, because it can be quite daunting doing a mini cut on your own, especially if you've never done one before.
Awesome. Cool.
All right.
I don't think there's anything else. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. As always, subscribe, like, drop your comments. We always appreciate those. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.